So, on the subject of building a body of work, I always understand and teach that where you live is such an important factor on what you're bringing into your work and what you can bring into your work. So, for me, I grew up in Chicago, and when I was 19, moved to California, and I lived there for a good 7 years. So I always described my earlier work when I was in my 20s and 30s as spiritual industrial spiritual. The combination. You take in where you live. You're living there for a reason. There's a purpose. It's really interesting for me because when I moved to Cleveland, Ohio, I thought, oh my gosh, why am I here? I actually lived in a small little town, about 30 minutes away from Cleveland, but I was pretty attached to Cleveland. I've seen Cleveland grow through the years. I have really embraced it and fell in love with it. So today I have some really beautiful landmarks that I want to show because for me, I can see where being here, growing up here, taking in some of the buildings and architecture and just landmarks have influenced me in my current bodies of work. So that's what I want to show in my video today, just like you make the comparison. And then I'd like for you to take a look at your own work and where you live and, really see how you can match with it and embrace it. Once we embrace what we're doing and where we're living and take it in, it's easier for us just to make our body of work about where we live, right? So here's an interesting historical facts about Cleveland. One of them is Cleveland, crazy enough, was the first city to be lit by electricity. Is that crazy? It also was the first rock concert. The first rock concert was held here in Cleveland, which is why I think many of you know we have the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame here. It's kind of interesting. I need to get up there to it. Actually, I might be going this weekend. And we also have, it's the birthplace of Superman, which is in our airport and becoming bigger now. When the economy is rough or when things are troubled, we all look to superheroes, right? That's what they tell us anyway. So anyway, we have Superman here. And another one is I have some beautiful, beautiful photos. I love going out and looking at architecture. That's really what inspires me in my work. My original book, Making Connections, that I wrote in 2007, was completely influenced by architecture. What I did is I walked around in cities in the world. I was traveling and teaching, and I just looked at in Paris, in Italy, in, the United States, in Indonesia. I just really looked at the way architecture was put together. Planes were put together, with riveting, hinges. I just, how heating ducts were put together. And I wrote a whole book on cold joints from bringing these architectural ideas down into the jewelry world with connections, just on a smaller scale. So that's what Making Connections was all about. It covered all different ways that metal and objects were connected through cold joints. It was really fun to write because I got to walk around in the world and just, look at all different ways doors, hinges were put together, etc. So, I still love seeing that in architecture, but I just wanted to give an example of how we take in our world around us and bring it into our own work. So this is about the arcade, is one of the first places that I was looking at. This was built in 1890, and actually it was the first indoor shopping center in America. It's crazy how I think the East Coast was settled, and during the Revolutionary War, Cleveland was thought about just as country, like get out there, your plants grow better. So it was modeled after Victorio in Milan, Italy. It's just really beautiful to go and see and to just to soak in and experience. And, I'm also showing, like, we can see in a lot of the architecture that literally there was holes, negative space, and glass put into them in so many different ways, throughout the city, where you can bring light up from behind when you're in a big space. The ceilings are all glass, and really this is glass that has lasted over 100 years, which is amazing. I also went across the street into the library, our Cleveland library, that is just grand and beautiful. And it reminds me a lot of Chicago, but with a different architectural style. Cleveland is older than Chicago. And, so really it's like even when things are redone, they're done in the same type of style as we expect here in Cleveland. I always think of Cleveland as more East Coasty, but we're considered the Midwest here. So I love the dark alleyways. There's so much that I love about cities. It just makes me happy. You can see it in my work. So I put together a body of work that reflected this. I didn't do it intentionally. It's like you just walk around, you take things in the world, you breathe it in, you look at it, you love it, you look at all the details. And then you find that you are building this through your work. You're building it in your work. We can't help but to build this in our work. When I was teaching, I would have 25 students in a room, 20 students in a room, and I would teach one technique. Every single student in the room would have a whole different look and a different take on just this one simple technique that I was teaching. It was amazing to me, and I saw this over and over and over again as I taught through the years. So it really, through my studies of teaching, it really let me know how much we are so individual, how much we have our own bodies of work, how much we can draw from these resources to create our own body of work. And you have it too. You have it too. We live in our bodies, and we're so familiar with who we are and how we feel that trust me when I say, when each of us produce our work and we see it laid out in front of us, it feels so normal. So know that about yourself. It's just going to feel normal because it's you. That's when you know you're on the right track. When you look at your work and you're like, oh man, I wanted my work to look this way, but instead it looks so much like me. That's when you know you're on the right track and you're really creating your personal body of work that is unique to everybody else in the world. There is no one else that will have your body of work. So isn't that a pretty cool fact? I remember the first time that I did a sale. Oh my God. Did like a retail sale. A serious one. I was in my studio building for, I know I've done some before then, but I was building and building. I was traveling, and I put together a body of work, and I had a retail event that I was going to up on the north side of Chicago, up in the Gold Coast. And, I was really excited about it. I poured a lot of love and techniques into it. I think I still have some of the photos now. I should dig some up and put some out here on one of these events. But the night before, I had the show the next day, and I was shaking in my boots. I was so scared because really, when you put your whole heart into your work and into what you're doing, I realize now that I should be shaking in my boots because I'm exposing the inside of me out into the world for everyone to see. And that's what it's really about when you're building a body of work. It's these artists and these people through time that you hear of that just, really built a unique body of work. You're putting your real self out there. And if you're not shaking in your boots, you're not really putting your real work out there. Does that make sense? So for me, I was shaking in my boots, and I showed up the next day, and of course my work looked different than anyone else's because I worked on myself, just exactly the story that I told you earlier. And what happened that day was amazing to me. I sold every single piece of jewelry with the high prices that I put on them. Price your work. When you're in the confidence of your home, put your prices on there of what value you see, because you know the love you put into them, then you know the work you put into them. And then just be able to stand behind these prices and your work when you're standing there at your retail or wholesale event. And don't change them. Don't shake in your shoes. Like, that's what the price is. This is who you are. And you stand there. And some people may walk past you and, be like, you call that art? And some people are going to walk past you and just, you call this art? Oh my gosh, this is amazing. And I promise you, that's the responses that you'll get when you put your whole heart into it. This is really, when I talk about creating magnetism in your work, this is what magnetism is all about. You're putting your whole heart and soul and love into your work, and you will be able to magnetize your people to you. Yes, you have to do the work and show up at an event and pick one that fits you and, do this real physical kind of work to pick the right event, to pay the money for it, to show up and be there at your sale, but to set up your booth so it also has your magnetism to it. But when you're there, your energy is in your work, your energy is in yourself. You will be able to call your people to you with your unique body of work. So here is my work, my jewelry, my line that I put together years ago after really spending some time in the city, really spending some time just looking at architecture, walking the streets, being there in the summertime, looking at the Golden Guild of Cleveland. We think of it, I always love the riffraff of the city too. But this is the gilded area of Cleveland, and here's my body of work. And I actually had, for this body of work, I had a stylist that called me and contacted me, and she sent me a photo that I have here of a body of work that she wanted to do for a London project, for a for a shoot for a publication. And I was like, right on. I love doing pieces like that. And I was like, yep, this is right up my alley. So I pulled from my resources in my mind and I built this body of work, and I had a beautiful photo shoot from it. And that's the type of things that I love to do. So, in thinking about this, look around. So one of the things that you can do to really make your own body of work stronger is really go around, bring your camera with you, bring your journal with you, walk around in your environment, in your city, in your town, in your country. If you live in the middle of nowhere, just with beautiful trees around you. Every single tree is different. There's pine trees. There's, manzanita. There's cactus. There's, it's just so interesting to see how versatile the whole world is. So we take for granted where we live. But I want you really just to go around and breathe the air and look at the flowers and look at the leaves. We're lucky here at this time of year. We get the colorful leaves. It's starting to turn, and I want to bring that into my work too, and of course I do. I live here. So just get your photos, get your journal, get your everything out and prepared, and walk your town and take photos and really see how it's influencing your work, or see where you can bring in some of this influence into your work, because this is who you are. The closer you get to building your authentic self, the more your work will stand out in the world as your very own. These are the people who their work is renowned. Their work gets attention. You get to show your work when you're really bringing out your true self inside and bringing it out into the physical. And that's what I like to teach. So I'm getting ready. I'm working on a brand new body of work, which I'm so grateful through all of this process that I've been able to get to this new body of work. And you'll start seeing more and more of it as we go. I'm going to wait till I get a little farther to bring it out, but I definitely will show it in the very near future. And what I'm doing is through this process is I'm marking down the ways that I'm getting to my authentic and new and fresh body of work. And I'm actually putting together a workshop that won't happen until February, but it's really, where I have prompts, I have ideas on how, and working hand in hand with people to build your own personal body of work. So see where you go with this. This is going to be a good start for you. If you want to work with me later on, a couple months down the road, just get on my mailing list and, but try it on your own. Really get this going and really look around and see what you can gather just from your environment around you, and then come back into your studio and see if you can feel it and recreate your work, your environment that you see around you. It's really fun to do, and it really gives you a passion and a purpose and a direction in your work.